Welcome back to the Venari Podcast. I'm Gov Candola, and we're joined for episode 2 of the Sustainability Series with Heather Repenning of Los Angeles Metro. Now, Heather is the Executive Officer for Sustainability Policy at LA Metro. Heather, welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Well, look, it's great to have you on. And obviously, I'm very excited by this episode because we're going to be learning a lot about the current initiatives and future initiatives at LA Metro, especially with the LA Olympics just around the corner. 2028, I suppose in infrastructure terms, that is literally around the corner. There's so much to do. And obviously with LA's, I suppose, love affair with cars, it's going to be a huge task getting individuals away from the automotive vehicles, onto public transport, especially with the huge number of individuals that obviously will be, coming to the games themselves. But I suppose to kick us off, it would be great to understand how, I suppose, you got involved with LA Metro, and more specifically, focusing on the sustainability policy.
Sure. Well, LA Metro is a large dynamic agency. We serve all of Los Angeles County, 10 million people. And we have about 11,000 employees. Our budget is over $9 billion for next year, and we have a very, very exciting and large capital program in which we are expanding both our bus and our rail service substantially. And we have a lot of different programs going on. Partly, when the voters went to the polls here in Los Angeles County in November of 2016, they voted at over 70% to approve a measure that created a half-cent sales tax that goes to funding LA Metro. And that sales tax does not have a sunset. And so it has allowed us to undertake, this very important expansion of our services so that we can really create the type of transit infrastructure and service that we think that LA County deserves. So we're in the process of doing all of that. And obviously there are a lot of opportunities to make our program sustainable, more sustainable. And, one of the reasons that I'm here is that I believe our program in itself increases sustainability. 50% of climate emissions in the state of California come from the transportation sector. So every time we, provide a ride on our bus or train, we are doing something that is good for the environment. So our core function is in itself sustainable and climate friendly. But we have obviously within everything we're doing a lot of chances to improve, to do things more sustainably, to minimize our negative impact on the environment, and to reduce climate emissions and be part of the kind of global fight against climate change.
Amazing. Yeah, whenever I'm speaking to someone about LA Metro, obviously the initiatives are always something they're discussing, and kind of, the amazing initiatives. In terms of some of those current initiatives that you're engaged with when it comes to sustainability, do you mind giving us a bit of an insight to that?
Sure. Well, I mean, one of the very large things that we're doing is that we're in the process of shifting all of our bus fleet, over 2,200 buses, to zero emission vehicles. So right now we're fueled with renewable natural gas, and so we're moving to zero emission. Right now, every bus that we're using and that we've ordered is battery electric. And so that is a very large undertaking. We're I think really at the forefront of this transition, and experiencing a lot of the the growing pains, but it's very exciting. We're also in the process of adding 2,000 new electric vehicle chargers that the public will be able to use and access in our park and ride lots. That goal is for 2030. And we are trying to triple our on-site renewable energy generation also by 2030, reduce our water consumption. Last year, our board passed, I think, first of its kind tree policy acknowledging the sort of relationship between public transit infrastructure and the urban canopy, which we feel is very important, especially as we start to experience some of the extreme heat that's part of climate change. And so we've got a lot going on.
That's a lot. I was going to say some huge initiatives in play there, and obviously some for the future as well. What are some of the main challenges the business is facing, I suppose, in the transition to zero carbon?
We provide almost 1 million rides every day between our bus and our rail service. So how we're fueling, what kind of vehicles we're using, like that's a really significant factor for us. Our board committed to doing that transition, our transition by 2030. And so we are in the process of doing so. We're, because we serve such a large geographic area, we're like experiencing challenges with, some of the battery technology. I think we're kind of guinea pigs. And I think that's kind of what the board wanted in adopting such an aggressive goal, was that we would help drive the market for those vehicles, knowing that there was a large public agency that was going to place a significant order, helping make sure that those companies knew that the business was coming. But at the same time, we have to provide excellent service to our customers. So our folks who are on the ground in the operations group are, working, tirelessly to make this work. And it's exciting and daunting and all of that.
I can imagine. I was going to say, shifting our focus slightly. Now, I know there's been a huge push from government and regulatory bodies when it comes to creating new solutions, but why should companies also engage in regulatory advocacy, in your opinion?
Well, sure. I think there's a lot at stake when it comes to regulation. And, we feel that we're, of course, the experts on what we do. And so we want to make sure that any rulemaking done by government agencies allows us to do things in the way that we think is going to be most successful. So, we have, an excellent government relations team that works very closely with regulatory agencies, both in Washington, D.C. and in Sacramento, California. With regulation, I think there is often, financial impact. For us, the challenge is we want to be able to support that regulation, but we also want to try to get funding so that we can make it happen here. Now, in the US, the last couple of years have been an incredible time for, public infrastructure funding.
Definitely.
Our the current administration, and Congress passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, and then they also passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is, among other things, a very large climate bill. And so we've seen just over the last couple of years a lot of brand new programs get up and running. And so we've also been trying to shape, how those programs are set up, and make sure that we're going to get our fair share, make sure that the way that the funding programs are written is going to be beneficial to us. And, because we think what we're doing here is very important in terms of jobs and the economy, not just locally, but actually nationally, but also in terms of climate change in the environment. We know that what we're doing here can really make a very big difference in reaching our goals.
Amazing. Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, when you've got a huge amount of investment that's coming through, along with the new partnerships that are being built, there's obviously going to be a need for an increase in talent. And obviously the mobility industry has been one where we've struggled a little bit in terms of kind of, I would say, bridging the gap. Have you seen a bit of a gap for the business looking to scale teams, who are involved directly with sustainability?
I think so. I mean, I think one of the things that is happening in the field of sustainability is that it's changing very, very quickly. So I think when I first got started in sustainability, it was there was a lot of talk about kind of greening things, and a lot of the work I mentioned around water and waste. And I mean, it's that is, to me, is traditional sustainability, is looking at, like, if you're working for an organization, how to make it more green. Since that field kind of got really established, we've now seen this other field, which is separate but which is related, obviously, focus more on climate, that really looks at emissions. And there is a lot of room for new talent. I actually had a chance to see John Kerry, who is the presidential envoy on climate issues for the Biden administration. Obviously, former senator, incredible global figure. Talk about the scope of the transition that we're in right now, which is there's nothing that you can liken it to other than the transition of our economy during the Industrial Revolution. And so it's very massive, and it's going to require a lot of talent. But there's also a lot of economic opportunity, a lot. And so hopefully we'll see, industry rise to the occasion. Hopefully we'll see schools and universities joining in to train folks. There's even a kind of a third area that has kind of stemmed from the sustainability space, which is really focused on climate resilience. And I see this as an area really of rapid growth that isn't about so much about climate action, is about adaptation and recognizing that some of the impacts of climate change are already happening. And so we need to actually prepare and harden a lot of our systems to be more resilient, given what we're already seeing and what we anticipate that we will see over coming years. So that is a field that I think is very, very nascent. It's going to need a lot of really good people in coming years.
Definitely. I think when you see universities having now degrees within these specific spaces, obviously there is certainly a need to bring in new talent and new individuals within the space over the coming years, and building towards, as you said, those 2030 and 2040 goals. In terms of just finally wrapping up, are there any future initiatives that you can share with us, that LA Metro will be involved with?
Sure. Well, you mentioned earlier on, Gov, the Olympics obviously are coming to LA in 2028. We're pretty excited. I think the Olympics was pitched to the IOC as a kind of no build format. So the idea was that we didn't have to build, a ton of things. We already have incredible facilities here. So I think it's an opportunity for those of us working in the mobility space, because the focus is not going to be on building a ton of new stadiums and things. We have the opportunity to focus on how we improve the experience of people traveling to and from the venues, and making sure that the residents here in LA can get around, get to work, and things like that. LA is very known to be a pretty car dependent region. And I actually think that we are on the verge of a significant transition. The Olympics is going to be a catalyst for that. I think that's why those of us in this mobility space are so excited, is that it just becomes something that helps catalyze, I think, a set of changes that was already underway. LA is committed to a car-free Olympics. And so that means that we have a lot of work to do to make sure that people can move around in a way that does not require, the use of personal automobiles. Obviously, as I mentioned, we've got a lot of infrastructure spending from DC that we're looking to help us get that job done. And so I think it's going to be a really exciting few years in the mobility space in LA as we look to the Olympics.
It's certainly going to be an exciting time for the West Coast and LA, as you mentioned, over the coming years, kind of building towards the Olympics. And Heather, thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to speak with us and give us a bit of an insight to LA Metro.
Happy to always talk about our work here, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.